Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier with my second presentation on the strategies and tactics of 1918, and I think this will blow the notion that nothing was learned out of the water. Because on August the 8th, the Allies attacked the Germans at Amiens, using what came to be known as all-arms battle, the culmination of what had been learned in 4 years of bitter fighting on the Western Front. It was the integration of all the new weaponry, so that the Germans were hit with firepower more than manpower, as the historian Peter Hart put it. But you will also see the cumulative effect of 4 years of fighting on the German ability to continue. And you will see the importance of the home front. So, key things to look out for. The artillery had almost 1,400 field guns and howitzers available, plus almost 700 heavy artillery pieces. Thanks to the newly formed Royal Air Force and flash spotters and sound rangers, the British gunners knew where just about every German gun was placed, and after 3 years' experience, they were very accurate. There was also enough guns for both a barrage aimed at the German guns as well as a creeping barrage to cover the initial attack. Infantry and more than 300 tanks attacked behind the creeping barrage. The tanks were used to crush the barbed wire and to take out any surviving German strongpoints. The infantry carried, as well as their rifles, light machine guns, mortars and rifle grenades, and were covered by heavy machine gun fire, and they no longer advanced in lines, but in small groups of about 8 men. This was all supported from the air, as planes strafed the German defences, bombed supply routes and airfields, and reported back on the progress of the attack, while behind the advance more tanks brought up supplies. Ludendorff called August the 8th the Black Day of the German army, as faith in victory seemed to evaporate and the will to carry on seemed to die. He ordered deserters to be shot. The Battle of Amiens only lasted 3 days. Foch had wanted to push on, but Haig was adamant that Entente casualties would only rise for little further gain. The damage had been done, and the Germans had been left shattered. The losses at the end of the 3 days may have been high for both sides, with German prisoners taken in large numbers for the first time since the war began. But the losses for the Germans, as with their equipment, big guns, mortars and machine guns, was going to be very hard, if not impossible, to replace. The Kaiser was fully aware of the seriousness of the situation, telling Ludendorff, as if he didn't know, that we have reached the limits of our capacity. The war must be ended. Ludendorff saw the bigger picture, telling a colleague the following day, "We cannot win this war anymore, but we must not lose it. Germany must end the war still on the offensive. If they didn't, the peace settlement would be terrible." But it was too late. In what came to be known as the 100 Days Offensive, the Entente forces carried on attacking across the Western Front throughout August. What helped was that guns and shells were in such abundance that they no longer had to be transferred between armies. Huge applause there for the home front. What else helped was the efficiency of the staff work, the organisation of supplies. This meant that a wave of attacks could be switched from sector to sector, and the Germans given no respite, no chance to regroup. An Australian force crossed the River Somme. A Canadian force broke through near Arras. The advances made were never too deep, which meant that they could be more easily held. But it was to be amongst the hardest fighting of the whole war, and the number of casualties would remain horrendously high right up to the end. And by now, 2,000 artillery pieces and 13,000 machine guns had been captured from the Germans. Each day, the Germans were being pushed back, leading Ludendorff to order a staged retreat back to the Hindenburg Line, so surrendering all the territory gained in his offensive. So it went on into September. On September the 3rd, Foch gave the order for continual attacks along the whole length of the Western Front, and Foch and Haig, convinced that victory was in their sights, were laying plans for another major push at the end of September. This would take the form of a ripple of assaults right across the front. It would begin on September the 26th with an attack by the French and Americans to the east of the front in the river Meuse-Argonne region, near Verdun. Then, moving west on September the 27th, the British and Canadians attacked the Hindenburg Line at Cambrai. On September the 28th, the Belgians, British and French, commanded by King Albert of Belgium, attacked at Flanders, at Ypres, before swinging back east with a combined British, Australian and American attack on September the 29th, again at the Hindenburg Line, in the middle of the front at Saint-Quentin. It was to be more of all-arms battle, but with a flexibility so that the best mix of weapons were used for the different circumstances. There would be incredible breakthroughs, but these would also all be sustained attacks, lasting right through to the bitter end in November. And they would cost the Entente powers and the Americans and their other allies another 1 million plus casualties. The Germans another 800,000, with almost another 400,000 taken prisoner. The Germans were now no longer in control. They were not able to do anything more than react to what was being thrown at them, losing territory that they had held since the beginning of the war. Both Hindenburg and Ludendorff knew that an armistice was the only way out for Germany, either to extract acceptable peace terms before they were fighting on German soil, though there was also the hope that a fight on German soil would galvanize the nation, or else buy time to regroup. But it was the end, for Germany as well as its allies. World War I ended with Germany defeated, because Germany failed to win the war in its first year. Thereafter, the horrific number of casualties impacted more on Germany than the Entente powers, though it was a close-run thing. The war may have been ultimately won with new tactics that enabled offensives to succeed, but nevertheless, it had been, in its essence, a war of attrition, and the death tolls, as well as the home fronts, help explain the end result. But a final word on the tactics and the argument that lessons were not learned, linked to the old lions led by donkeys argument. Compare World War I with the American Vietnam War and the use of search and destroy tactics, the use of napalm and Agent Orange. American combat troops were first deployed in 1965. America scrambled out of Vietnam in 1975. I think more was learnt, and more quickly, in World War I. So, Let me thank you so much for listening, and the very best of luck in your studies. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and tell your friends about it. Spread the love. But for now, cheers.